Okay, here we go. So I recently finished reading Never Let Me Go by Kazuo Ishiguro, and for those of you that follow me on Goodreads, you may be aware already that I didn't like this book so much, and I do like to do book reviews when I finish a book, share my feelings. Most of the time they're positive. In this case, I was not a fan, so much so that instead of doing a review, I want to do a discussion because I want to be able to touch on a bunch of different things that I read about. This discussion, fair warning, might become more of a rant at some point. I'm not entirely sure how that's gonna play out, but we'll see. This is a very well-known book. Not only was it shortlisted for the Man Booker Prize, but it was made into a movie in 2010, and that's actually where I was first introduced to the story. So picking up this book, I have vague memories of what the story is about, and I have heard really good things about it, so I had high expectations, I guess, or at least higher than what I ended up getting. For those of you who have not read the book yet, this discussion will definitely contain spoilers, but if you don't care, then definitely keep watching. It follows three characters who are living in England, and it's supposed to be a sort of alternate history. So it's not actually present day, but it's not that far in the past, and it's never really said when it's supposed to take place. This book is probably 85% literary fiction, 10% sci-fi, and then 5% alternate history tidbits, which play into the whole sci-fi bit. And that sounds like an interesting premise. I enjoy literary fiction, I enjoy sci-fi as well, and I thought that these two things combining together would be really interesting. However, that is not the case at all. As you may or may not know, this book is told from Kathy's point of view, and it focuses mostly on her and her friend Ruth and her friend Tommy, and the three of them are friends at this school, this idyllic school called Halsham, and going into the book you don't know why they're all at the school together. You just sort of assume that it's a boarding school. Obviously I knew a little bit more because I'd seen the movie, but you know that like something's going on. They have all these teachers and there's some secret going on, and like, okay, cool, I'm all about that. But the first issue that I had with this book was how goddamn boring it was. Kathy, it's like listening to this person you like kind of know at a party talk about all their friends that you don't know at all, and you just don't care. You just want her to stop talking so you can talk about other things with other people, or in this case, read about maybe more of the sci-fi element. Now obviously Kathy doesn't totally understand what's happening to her, but at the same time, this book could have been written differently so that it was more obvious, or at least interesting to the reader as to like what's happening. They're all being raised like cattle, you know, for the slaughter. I wanted to know more about that part of it, but no, because it's Kathy and she just wants to talk and overanalyze the crap out of her friendships with Ruth, who by the way is just a deplorable person, and Tommy, who's like, okay, kind of annoying, but kind of not. So yeah, number one issue was just how it's written, and it's always Kathy talking about people you just don't care about. Second issue was there was really no likable characters in this. You don't have to like a character to like a book. You can hate the character but still find them interesting and intriguing, and how, you know, kind of pulls the story along. In this case, no, not at all. Kathy was pretty boring because she spent most of her time overanalyzing every single interaction, and just the way it was written as to how she phrased things like, oh, we're going to talk about this story, but then we'll come back to it because I'm going to tell you this other equally boring or even more boring story first that leads up to this other point that you also don't care about. So like, what is the point? Oh god. And then we have Ruth, who's Kathy's friend, but they're like friends in the sense that they try and get along as much as possible, but Ruth's kind of like a bitch, basically. And she always wants things her way, and she wants to control the situation, and she wants to feel special. And when you're at a school with a bunch of other kids, I can understand wanting to feel special because like you don't have parents to sort of fawn over you and buy you gifts and things like that. But at the same time, Ruth just continued to be a horrible person even up until when they're grown up and trying to like live their life a little bit before they go to donate all their organs. she was so manipulative, and Kathy tried her best to get along with her as much as possible. And honestly, the parts where I liked Kathy the most was when she was dealing with Ruth, and although she didn't necessarily deal with Ruth in the way that I would have dealt with Ruth, I'm not Kathy. That's just not Kathy's personality, so I can understand that part of it. I kind of hated her. And then we have Tommy, who is involved in a love triangle between Kathy and Ruth, of course, even if it's not YA romance like we think of today. It's literary fiction. It's done in a better way. It's not throw it in your face obvious, but at the same time, you saw it coming. Come on. Even if you hadn't seen the movie, you saw it coming. And Tommy deals with all these rages as a child and, you know, isn't good at art, doesn't fit in with anybody, and Kathy sort of becomes his one friend. And so that's great for them that they sort of click and get along, but then you throw Ruth in the middle and she just kind of ruins everything anyway. Tommy was probably the most likable of the three, but even then I really didn't care that much. The good thing about Tommy was that he did have growth. He grew as a character, he learned a lot, he went from this outcast, grumpy kid to somebody who was more likable, had friends, sort of realized like, hey, I was this way in the past, but I was able to grow as I was, you know, going from being 8 to being 18, or however old exactly they are. So we have our three main characters, and then we have the secondary characters like Madame and all the teachers at the school, and then people that they meet once they leave the school. And I don't remember half their names because I didn't care about them, because they were mostly mentioned in passing, or it was like, once again, it's like Kathy's at a party and she's talking about all these people that you don't really know or you don't know at all, so of course you're not going to remember their names, and then she mentions them like 50 pages later and you're like, who was that? Who cares? Another thing I want to mention was how they seemed to just try to refrain so much from saying the word clone. It is only used once in the book, and I was just waiting for it. They kept alluding to it more and more and more, and I'm trying to figure out if it was a ploy for like, oh, when are they gonna say the big word? Or was it that Ishiguro didn't want the reader to like really know, like they were just waiting for that confirmation, or they just weren't aware at all of what was going on? And then when they finally dropped the word clone towards the end of the book, you'll be like, oh my goodness, we know for sure now they used the word clone, finally. And I'm just like, stop dancing around it. Say it. Bring in the sci-fi element more. Once again, I know it's Kathy talking, but she is writing, reflecting on everything that happened. Can't she like tell us a bit more? She was a carer for how many years? She should be able to tell us more about this system. Instead, we have to wait to talk to Miss Emily and Madame at the end where they can finally say the word clone. I just wanted to know more about how they came to this point, because it's an alternate history, but it's not caught up to today, and even today we don't do what they do in this book, harvesting humans for their organs. Like, that's some dark stuff. And Miss Emily talks a little bit about how some of them are raised so horribly and the kids at Hailsham were lucky, and just the way she talked about, like, you should be grateful almost, the way she was saying it, that made me angry. So for once I was actually on the side of the clones. But good God. So yeah, all that being said, I really didn't like the book. I wouldn't recommend it unless you are a fan of slow literary fiction novels with annoying characters. Then definitely go for it. I know there are people that like this book, and I'm sure you have your reasons. Feel free to share them down below, and maybe I can kind of see the light from your side a bit. I don't remember hating the movie, but just the way the book was written, that was my #1 issue. This sucker took me almost 2 months to read, and it's not even 300 pages. Like, this is a short book. I should have blown through this no problem, but because it was so horribly boring, I just couldn't do it. And at the same time, I wanted to read it because I thought maybe I was just missing something and I would be able to find something in the story that was like, oh, this is what everybody loves. This is why people love this book, because of this moment right here that then transformed the rest of the story. And then we just kept getting further and further down the line. They're doing all these things that nobody cares about. Just, oh God. It could have been so good. It could have, if it had been told differently, it could have been such a good book. But no. I think I've said all I can say for now. If you didn't like this book either, share your thoughts down below. I'm sure it'll bring up other memories of feelings I had while reading this book. And for those of you that enjoyed it, tell me why. I want to know, I want to understand. Hopefully this video was at least semi-enjoyable for you. As always, all of our links are in the doobly-doo. Thank you guys very much for watching this one, and I'll see you later.